about it. Rodney and we don't want to move yet. We want to use the money to restart the firm. Properly this time. No knockoff watches, no exploding dolls. A real consultancy. Dell looked at them, surprised. Restart the firm. Under Rodney's management? Yes, Rodney said, his voice firm. Managing Director Rodney Trotter. But I'm going to need a chairman. Someone with experience. Someone who knows how to close a deal. Dell felt a lump in his throat. He looked at Raquel, who was holding Damien as he slept on the sofa. Chairman Derek Trotter, Dell whispered. I like the sound of that. It's got Laboratory Garney. Raison d'etre, Dell, Rodney corrected gently. Whatever. They sat in the quiet of the flat, the neon sign of the estate flickering outside. They weren't millionaires anymore. The gold from the studio had already been accounted for by the ghosts of their past mistakes. But for the first time in years, they weren't running. They were standing still, and they were together. You know, Rodney, Dell said, looking at a photo of their mum on the mantel. I think she'd be proud. We kept our promise. We stuck together. Yeah, Dell, we did. But listen, Dell leaned in, his eyes sparking with that old familiar fire. I was talking to the driver of that limo on the way home. He knows a bloke in Croydon who's got a consignment of slightly damp, but perfectly functional, industrial-sized fans. With the summer coming up, we could make a killing. Dell, Rodney groaned. No, listen, it's a guaranteed winner this time next year. As the lights of Nelson Mandela House faded into the night, the dream lived on. Because in the world of the Trotters, the goalpost might move, and the millions might vanish, but the hustle, the beautiful, chaotic, hopeful hustle would never die. Chapter 14, The Executive Suite. The new official headquarters of Trotter's Independent Traders Phase 2 was, as Rodney put it, a work in progress. In reality, it was still the living room of Nelson Mandela House, but with a few significant alterations. Rodney had insisted on buying a second-hand mahogany desk that was so large it required the removal of the sofa to fit into the corner. It commands respect, Dell, Rodney said, adjusting his swivel chair, which squeaked with every movement. When a client walks in, hypothetically speaking, they need to see a man of stature, a man of administration. Dell, leaning against the sideboard with a toothpick in his mouth, looked at the desk and then at Rodney. Rodney, you look like a primary school kid who's accidentally wandered into the headmaster's office. And where am I supposed to sit? On the floor. You're the chairman, Dell. You're Smobel. You're the face of the company in the field. You're the outreach. The outreach? That's a fancy word for the bloke who carries the boxes, isn't it? Dell snorted. Anyway, never mind the mahogany. Have you seen the fans? The fans, all 200 of them, were currently occupying the balcony, covered by a suspicious-looking tarp. They were the industrial-sized units Dell had mentioned, and they did indeed smell faintly of canal water. We need a marketing strategy, Rodney, Dell said, his eyes lighting up. I've been thinking. Trotter's Turbo Chill. It sounds modern. It sounds aerodynamic. Dell, we agreed. Proper consultancy. We're not selling damp fans from the balcony. Rodney slammed his hand on the desk, only to wince as a splinter caught his palm. We're supposed to be advising businesses on efficiency and growth. And what's more efficient than a workforce that isn't sweating like a glassblower's bottom? Dell shot back. I've already made a call. There's a warehouse in Deptford. Their air conditioning has gone caput, and the foreman is a bloke I know called Greasy George. He's desperate. Rodney sighed, the managing director's facade cracking slightly. Greasy George, does he have a legitimate business license? He's got a van and a clipboard, Rodney. In Peckham, that's a conglomerate. Come on, put your executive suit on. We're going to do a deal. Chapter 15, The Great Fan Fiasco. The Deptford warehouse was a corrugated iron oven. Inside, 30 men were moving crates while the air shimmered with heat. Greasy George, a man whose forehead was permanently slick with perspiration, greeted them with the desperation of a drowning man. Dell, thank God. It's 90 degrees in here and the union is threatening to walk out. George wiped his face with a rag that looked like it had been used to clean an engine. Don't you worry, George, Dell said, draping an arm around him. The chairman and the managing director have arrived. Rodney, show him the brochure. Rodney reached into his briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper with Trotter's Turbo Chill written in felt-tip pen. These are high-output, industrial-grade circulation units, Mr. George, designed for maximum atmospheric displacement. Will they cool the place down? George asked. Cool it. Dell laughed. George, by the time we've got these beauties humming, your blokes will be asking for thermal underwear. They're that powerful. They spent the next 3 hours hauling the fans from the van into the warehouse. As Rodney plugged the first unit in, he looked at the label on the back. It was in a language that looked vaguely Cyrillic. Dell, these fans, they're from 1974, and they're marked military surplus. Even better, Rodney, Army quality, built to last. Rodney flipped the switch. There was a low, guttural growl, like a hungry wolf. Then a screech that set every tooth in the warehouse on edge. Suddenly, the fan blades began to spin with terrifying velocity. A blast of air cool, but smelling strongly of old fish and diesel erupted from the unit. See, Dell shouted over the noise. Total displacement. Greasy George looked impressed. I'll take the lot. 100 quid each? George, Dell sighed, shaking his head. For a friend, 120, and that's because I like your face. They shook on it as the Trotters drove away. Rodney was already doing the math in his